Welcome, Seeker.
What if everything you've ever done, every thought you've ever had, and every possibility your soul has ever considered was being recorded? Not in some dusty tome or digital file, but in a living field of pure consciousness, an invisible library that holds the past, the present, and all possible futures. This is not fiction. This is the mystery of the Akashic Records. Across ancient traditions, mystics and sages have spoken of a realm beyond time, a boundless ether where truth is never lost, where karma is etched into light, and where the blueprint of your soul can be read like scripture. In Hindu cosmology, it was known as the Akasha, the fifth element, the spiritual ether that holds the vibrational imprint of everything that ever was. Theosophists later gave it a name, the Akashic Records. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, claimed to access this realm to diagnose illness and uncover forgotten lifetimes. And in hushed circles of occult initiates and mystic lineages, it was revered as the Book of Life. But here's what most people don't know. The Akashic Records are not just about past lives or spiritual curiosity. They may very well be the operating system of reality itself, a divine intelligence that stores and responds to our thoughts, emotions, and actions, shaping the world we live in through invisible threads of resonance. In other words, to access the Akashic Records is not just to read your destiny, it is to co-create it. This video is not another New Age overview. We're going deeper, much deeper. You'll learn why ancient civilizations guarded this knowledge in mystery schools and sacred temples, the forgotten science that bridges Akashic consciousness and quantum fields, how your thoughts are writing your soul's narrative in real time, and perhaps most importantly, how to tap into this cosmic archive yourself. Because this is not about blind belief. This is about reawakening a faculty that has been dormant within you, a sense, a vision, a knowing that you are more than just a person living a life. You are a being traveling through layers of reality, encoded with meaning far beyond your five senses. So, are you ready to remember? Let us step behind the veil into the space between spaces and explore the hidden truth of the Akashic Records. To understand the true depth of the Akashic Records, we must go far back, to a time when wisdom wasn't written in books, but carved into the memory of the soul. Long before the term Akashic Records existed, ancient cultures spoke of a hidden dimension, a field of divine intelligence that permeated the cosmos. In Vedic philosophy, this field was called Akasha, a Sanskrit word meaning ether or sky. It was the subtlest of the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and Akasha. But unlike the others, Akasha wasn't a thing you could touch. It was the space that held all things, the canvas upon which the universe was painted, the conscious medium through which vibration turned into form, thought into destiny. In the ancient Upanishads, Akasha was described not just as a physical element, but as Brahman, the ultimate reality, the unseen womb of existence itself. Later, in Buddhist cosmology, this same concept evolved into the idea of a universal mind stream, an interconnected consciousness in which all phenomena arise and dissolve. The Egyptians, too, seemed to hint at this idea, though in symbols and mystery. The Hall of Ma'at, where the soul was judged, was said to contain a record of every deed, weighed against the feather of truth. The Book of the Dead was not just a funerary guide, it was a map of karmic memory. In the Kabbalistic tradition, we find references to a metaphysical book called the Sefer HaChaim, the Book of Life, where the Creator inscribes every soul's path. And in early Christian mysticism, especially among Gnostics, we see references to the Logos, the divine word, the encoded order of all things. Different cultures, different words, but the same truth whispered again and again. There exists a hidden dimension, a record of existence, accessible not through the eyes, but through the awakened inner senses. The term Akashic Records itself was popularized in the late 19th century by theosophists such as Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner. They taught that everything, every word, thought, and action was recorded in the Akasha, and that highly trained seers could access these vibrational imprints to retrieve hidden knowledge. Blavatsky referred to it as the indestructible tablet of the astral light. Steiner called it the cosmic memory. But they agreed on one thing. This was not metaphor. It was real. An actual living archive, not of paper or parchment, but of frequency, consciousness, and light. And then came Edgar Cayce, the American mystic known as the Sleeping Prophet. In trance states, he claimed to access the Akashic Records directly, giving readings on everything from past lives to medical conditions to the future of civilization. He said, "The Akashic Records are the book of remembrance of God." But the deeper you go into this subject, the more you realize the Akashic Records are not just a spiritual curiosity. They form the philosophical backbone of how reality itself functions. From a Hermetic perspective, they reflect the principle of vibration. Everything is energy, and energy leaves imprints. From a Taoist viewpoint, they align with the Tao, the way that underlies all things. In mystical Christianity, they echo the Logos, the divine code through which all is created. Even in quantum theory, the parallels are astonishing. Physicist Erwin Laszlo, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, wrote extensively about the Akashic field, a cosmic information field that may account for the coherence of the universe, the mystery of consciousness, and even reincarnation. According to Laszlo, this field acts like a memory of the cosmos, storing not just data, but meaning, intention, and experience. It's here that ancient metaphysics and modern science begin to converge. Because if everything is vibration, if consciousness is fundamental, then it follows that consciousness leaves a trail, and that trail is the Akashic Record. But why has this knowledge been hidden? The answer is twofold. First, because it requires initiation. To truly access the Akashic realm, one must undergo a transformation of perception. You cannot read these records with ordinary eyes. You must learn to listen with the soul. Second, because knowledge is power, and those who control access to truth control reality itself. Across history, this information was guarded by high priests, mystery schools, and esoteric lineages. The uninitiated were either dismissed or deliberately misled. The records were not denied, they were disguised, wrapped in myth, hidden in parables, cloaked in symbols. Now, in the age of information, the veil is thinning. More people are awakening to the truth. But with that awakening comes responsibility. Because the Akashic Records are not just a place to visit, they are a mirror. What you find within them depends on what you bring to them. And so, before we step further into this mystery, ask yourself, what are you truly seeking? Knowledge? Power? Healing? Liberation? Because the Akasha responds not to your words, but to your intent. And once the records are opened, you can never unknow what you discover. Imagine for a moment walking through a vast temple not of stone, but of light. Its walls shimmer with sacred geometry. Its corridors stretch beyond time. And every step you take is silent except for the echo of your own soul. This is not fantasy. This is how many mystics describe their first conscious entry into the Akashic Records. But what exactly are these records? In their simplest definition, the Akashic Records are said to be an energetic imprint of every soul's journey past, present, and even potential futures. They are not bound by language, nor limited by linear time. They are vibrational archives stored in the very fabric of the universe. But here's where it gets more mysterious. The records aren't just a library you go to. They are alive, they are conscious. And more than that, they are interactive. Just as your subconscious mind contains memories, symbols, and patterns you may not be aware of, the Akashic field holds the collective subconscious of all that has ever existed. Every choice you've made, every emotion you've felt, every thought you've birthed into the ether, all of it lives on, encoded like energetic DNA. But how do we access it? Contrary to popular belief, the Akashic Records do not reside somewhere out there. They are accessed through alignment, not location, through frequency, not force. The ancient mystics knew this. They taught that to enter sacred realms, one had to undergo inner purification of intent, of thought, of vibration. Because the Akashic realm doesn't open to the curious, it opens to the resonant. To access it, you don't need a key. You need a tuning fork, and that fork is your consciousness. Here's an analogy. Imagine your mind is a radio. Most people live tuned into the static of fear, doubt, distraction. But if you learn to quiet the noise through meditation, prayer, or deep contemplation, you can tune into higher frequencies. And at a certain point, the signal becomes clear. You begin receiving insights, images, feelings, not from your mind, but from the mind behind the mind. This is often how the Akashic Records begin to speak. Some receive vision scenes from past lives, symbolic landscapes, even sacred beings who serve as gatekeepers or guides. Others receive downloads, bursts of intuitive knowledge, sudden clarity on soul contracts, karmic loops, or unresolved patterns. And for a few, it's like walking into a cosmic library where every book is a life, and every life is still being written. But why do these records exist at all? The answer is both practical and profound. From a mystical perspective, the universe is not chaos. It is order in motion. Everything is cause and effect. Every soul is on a path of evolution. And like any good system, there must be a record of what has been learned, what has been mastered, and what still remains. Think of it like a school. Each lifetime is a lesson. Each soul a student. The Akashic Records are the report card, the curriculum, and the library of required reading all at once. And yet, they are more than that. They are also a mirror of potential. Yes, they show what has been, but more importantly, they show what could be. They reveal the forks in your path, the repeating patterns you haven't seen, the inner contracts you made before you were born, why you chose your family, your traumas, your struggles. They don't dictate fate. They illuminate choice. Because here lies one of the greatest truths. The Akashic Records are not fixed. They evolve as you evolve. In other words, the future isn't written in stone. It's written in sand. And with every conscious action, you are writing and rewriting your own chapter in the cosmic book. This is why true access to the records is not a passive experience. It's an invitation to deep transformation. But beware, because what you find in the records can shake you. You may discover past lives that reveal unfinished business. You may see how patterns of addiction, fear, or self-sabotage have echoed across incarnations. You may feel overwhelmed by the weight of what you've carried, not just in this life, but many. And yet, with this knowledge comes a gift, sovereignty. Because once you understand your karmic blueprint, you are no longer a prisoner of fate. You become a conscious co-creator of your destiny. You begin to ask new questions. What am I still repeating? What lesson did I avoid last time? Greater than, what soul contract am I ready to fulfill or break? And most importantly, who was I before the world told me who to be? In the next section, we will dive deeper into the symbols, paradoxes, and truths hidden within the records. We'll explore the sacred beings said to guard this realm, the myths and misconceptions that cloud our understanding, and the reason why accessing the records is not just an esoteric curiosity, but a path to awakening the deepest layers of your soul. But before we go further, take a moment, close your eyes, breathe, And ask yourself, not with your mind, but with your heart, what would you do if you remembered everything your soul has ever known? If this journey into ancient truth resonates with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veiled to explore deeper mysteries. Comment below. Have you ever felt you've lived before? Let's walk this path together. They say the deeper you go into the Akashic Records, the more the veil thins. But what exactly is this veil? Some say it's the boundary between the conscious and the unconscious. Others say it separates the world of form from the world of essence. But within the Akashic tradition, the veil is something far more elusive. It is forgetting itself. Because before we are born, many believe we pass through a sacred threshold and forget who we truly are. We forget the vows we made. We forget the wounds we chose to heal. We forget the timeless wisdom our soul once carried like a flame. The Akashic Records are the place where that memory still lives. And the deeper you go, the more you begin to remember. But not all memories come gently. The records don't simply hand you visions like a movie reel. They speak in symbols, in synchronicities, in layered truths that unfold over time. What you receive is not always what you want to know, but what your soul needs to know. And herein lies the paradox. The Akashic Records are infinitely open, yet impenetrably guarded. Not by force, but by resonance. By your own readiness. You see, every seeker carries a vibration. And like tuning forks, the records only reveal what matches your level of awareness. You cannot steal divine truth. You must become worthy of it. That's why, in many esoteric traditions, the records are protected by beings of light guardians, librarians, or spiritual sentinels who ensure that what is revealed will serve evolution, not ego. Some mystics describe them as robed figures made of shimmering light, whose gaze pierces through lifetimes. Others feel their presence more subtly, as a sudden calm, a warm sensation, a knowing that one is not alone. These guardians do not judge, but they do reflect. They mirror your own intentions back to you. If you come to the records seeking power or proof, the door may remain closed. But if you come seeking growth, healing, remembrance, the records will unfold like a lotus. Still, not all who claim to access them truly do. Let's speak plainly for a moment. In the age of information, the idea of the Akashic Records has been repackaged, sometimes reduced to a quick-fix reading or a novelty service. But make no mistake, this is not entertainment. This is soul work. And true access requires more than curiosity. It requires humility, discipline, and a heart aligned with truth. One of the greatest misconceptions is that the records are like a cosmic Google search. You ask a question and receive an answer. But the truth is far more nuanced. The Akashic field doesn't operate like a machine. It operates like a mirror of divine intelligence. The answers it gives are often wrapped in metaphor, story, or sensation. It speaks to your higher self, not your ego. For instance, you may ask, what was I in a past life? And instead of receiving a name or date, you are shown a vision, a burning city, a child's face, the feel of steel in your hands. You don't know what it means, but something in you remembers. This is the essence of Akashic wisdom. It bypasses the logical mind and speaks directly to the soul's language intuition, imagery, emotion. The goal is not simply to gain information. It is to receive initiation. Because the records are not just a passive storehouse. They are a living teacher. And like all great teachers, they demand your participation. You may be shown a karmic pattern that began 6 lifetimes ago. But unless you choose to face it, to heal it, to forgive or release, the cycle will continue. Knowledge alone does not liberate. Integration does. Now, here's a deeper layer often left unspoken. The Akashic Records are not just about your story. They are also the record of collective humanity. of Earth herself, and even of other worlds. Some mystics speak of planetary Akasha's record fields for entire civilizations. Atlantis, Lemuria, ancient Egypt, all held their own energetic imprints, preserved in what some call the planetary grid, or crystalline consciousness. These collective records reveal the rise and fall of consciousness across time, the patterns of war and peace, forgetting and remembering, destruction and renewal. And when you learn to read these patterns, you begin to understand something profound. We are not just individuals on a path. We are a species in the process of awakening. And the Akashic Records are our mirror. They show us what happens when we act from fear, and what becomes possible when we act from love. They show us that humanity is not lost, but in process. That we are, in every moment, co-writing the story of what comes next. But here's a secret. The Akashic field doesn't just remember. It also responds. It reflects our intentions, our prayers, our choices. And as our frequency shifts, so too does the path that unfolds. This is why ancient initiates treated the records not as a database, but as a sacred covenant, a relationship. To work with the records is to enter into dialogue with the divine mind. It is to say, I am ready to remember. I am ready to grow. I am ready to see what I was, so I may become what I am meant to be. So as you contemplate this hidden truth, ask yourself, what if the universe is not holding secrets from you, but waiting for you to become ready to receive them? Do you feel drawn to this kind of knowledge? Do you believe you've touched the Akashic field before, perhaps in dreams, déjà vu, or sudden insight? Leave a comment below. Let's explore this labyrinth together. And if this resonates, subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veiled to keep unlocking the mysteries. We've journeyed through the mysteries. We've traced the whispers of the ancients and the echoes of forgotten lives. But now comes the question that truly matters. How can you, here and now, tap into the Akashic Records yourself? Not just as an idea, but as a living, breathing experience? Let me be clear. You don't need to be a mystic in a mountain temple or spend decades in meditation to begin. The Akashic field is not reserved for the chosen few. It's an ever-present dimension of consciousness, subtle but accessible if you learn to listen. So let's explore 3 foundational practices that can help you open the gateway. 1. Prepare the vessel. Cultivating inner stillness. The first step is not about doing. It's about undoing. You must quiet the noise. The Akashic Records exist at a vibrational frequency that cannot be reached through mental chatter or emotional turbulence. You must become a clear vessel like a still lake that reflects the stars above. Begin with a simple meditation practice, 10 to 15 minutes a day. Sit in silence. Breathe deeply and slowly. Focus on the sensation of your breath or your heartbeat. With each exhale, release distractions, doubts, expectations. This isn't about forcing answers. It's about training your awareness to receive. You're not reaching out. You're tuning in. And as your inner state becomes more coherent, you begin to align with the subtle frequencies of the Akashic field. 2. Use a key. The sacred intention. Accessing the Akashic Records is not about curiosity, it's about alignment. Before entering this space, set a clear and sacred intention. You are not demanding. You are inviting a dialogue. Here's a simple invocation used by many seekers. I call upon the keepers of the Akashic Records. I seek knowledge for the highest good, to understand, to heal, and to grow. May what is revealed be in service to truth and love. Speak this aloud, or hold it in your heart. Then pose your question, not from ego, but from soul. Ask not, how can I get what I want? But rather, what do I most need to understand right now? What patterns am I being invited to heal? What truth am I resisting, and why? The more sincere your question, the deeper the response. 3. Enter the field. practices of connection. Once your mind is quiet and your intention is set, you're ready to step into the field. There are many ways to do this, but here are two accessible paths. A, the path of visualization. Close your eyes and imagine a great temple, library, or hall. See yourself walking through vast corridors lined with glowing books, crystalline tablets, or fields of light. Feel the presence of a wise being, a guide, a guardian, perhaps even your higher self. Ask your question, then allow the imagery to flow. You might receive symbols, visions, a sensation in your body, words or phrases. Don't force anything, just observe. Later, write down everything, even if it makes no sense at first. Meaning often unfolds in time. Be the path of dream work. Your dreams are one of the most natural portals to the records. Before sleep, set an intention. Tonight, I ask to be shown what my soul most needs to see. Keep a journal by your bed. When you wake, even if it's just a fragment, write it down. Over time, patterns emerge. Symbols repeat, insights sharpen. You begin to see that your soul has always been speaking. You simply weren't listening. A word on discernment. The records may reveal what's beautiful, but also what's uncomfortable. You might uncover past life wounds, karmic entanglements, or truths you're not yet ready to face. This is part of the path. Do not rush. Do not seek only comfort. Seek truth and let it change you. And remember, the Akashic field is not your servant. It is your mirror. Approach it not with entitlement, but with reverence. The more you honor the process, the more it will reveal. Begin where you are. You don't need perfection. You don't need special gifts. You simply need willingness. Start with one practice. Meditate. Set intention. Open to receive. And above all, pay attention. Watch for synchronicities. Listen to dreams. Feel the stirrings of inner knowing. The records may not thunder into your life with blinding light. They may come as a whisper, a nudge, pattern you finally recognize. And when they do, you'll know. Have you ever had an experience that felt like a glimpse into a deeper truth? A moment when something within you remembered something ancient? Share your story in the comments. And if this path calls to you, subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veiled. The mysteries are only just beginning. So, what have we truly uncovered? Beneath all the mysticism, the metaphors, and the ancient lore, the Akashic Records are not just somewhere out there. They are here, now woven into the very fabric of existence, and into you. They are not a place. They are a state of awareness, a living archive of all that was, all that is, and all that could be. A reflection of the divine mind, encoded not in ink, but in vibration. And here's the paradox. You are both the reader and the record, the seeker and the source. When you gaze into the Akasha, you are not accessing something foreign. You are remembering something forgotten. You are reclaiming your place in the vast intelligence of the cosmos. Why this matters now? In a world ruled by data, but starved for wisdom? In a culture obsessed with knowing more, but understanding less? The Akashic Records are a quiet rebellion. They remind us that knowledge is not just external, it's inherent. That truth is not handed down by institutions, but unveiled by consciousness. That your soul carries within it the echoes of eternity. And as we stand at the edge of rapid change, technological, societal, spiritual, we must learn to access more than just facts. We must awaken knowing. This is why the ancients guarded this knowledge. Not because it was dangerous, but because it was sacred. And the sacred must be approached with reverence, not consumption. A final reflection. If you've ever felt a deep intuition you couldn't explain, if you've ever sensed a memory that wasn't yours, if you've ever dreamed of a place that felt more real than waking life, then you've already brushed against the veil. You've already stood at the threshold of the Akashic realm. The question is, will you walk through it? Not to escape this world, but to transform your experience of it. Because once you access the Akasha, even once you are changed. You begin to see your challenges not as punishments, but as lessons. Your relationships not as accidents, but as intricate soul contracts. Your life not as a series of random events, but as a narrative with depth, meaning, and purpose. And from that place, you no longer feel like a victim of reality. You become a co-creator of it, and so the door stays open. This video is not the end. It is the beginning. The Akashic Records are not a topic to be understood. They are a mystery to be entered again and again. And every time you do, you come back changed. So if this journey resonated with you, if something stirred in your soul, if the veil felt just a little thinner, then the records are calling you. Don't ignore the call. We invite you to share what this video awakened in you. Have you ever experienced something that felt like it came from another lifetime, another realm? What questions would you ask if you could access your soul's blueprint? Leave your thoughts below. We read them all. And if you want to keep walking deeper into the mysteries, subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veil. Together, we're not just learning, we're remembering. And the journey has only just begun.